Welcome. You are listening to Sanctuaries, Coffee, and Conversation. My name is Myrna Haskell. I'm co-founder and managing editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women that empowers and inspires with a focus on women in the arts, women humanitarians, and business leaders who make a difference in their local or global communities, women's health and wellness, and a variety of articles in inspirational travel, career, and finance. There's also an interactive component to the magazine. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. My guest today is Dr. Emily Bobson. She is a chiropractor who serves clients in the Hudson Valley region of New York. Welcome, Emily. How are you?
Hi, Myrna. I'm so happy to be doing this with you. This is awesome.
I'm excited, and you're just a wealth of information on this fabulous topic we have today, which is a hot topic, right? Stress and the immune system.
Especially now, right?
Yeah. And I just wanted to say there's so many women today, right? We're taking care of families, perhaps elderly parents as well at the same time, working full-time or even more than full-time, some women. And so that can all be a builder to start just like feeling stress every day, even when you first get out of bed in the morning, right?
Definitely.
So I wanted to ask you about how stress causes disease.
Myrna, this is a really vast amount of information, but I'm going to try and give it some clarity because I think we don't realize how much it affects every aspect of our life. And so most of our life would be spent, most of the time in our day would be spent if we really worked at this to de-stress. Because what happens is, and it just happened now, right? We had an appointment for an interview together to do this. And what happened? I had a technical malfunction. Yeah. And it didn't matter how much I had prepped or planned for being on time and ready for this interview, the computer didn't want to work around, or I didn't have the technology to understand how to work around the computer, the glitches we ran into. And right away, I went into panic mode. And that's what happens. You go into panic mode, you stack the day a certain way, you make as best as you can preparedness plans for all that. And then in the end, no matter what you do, you still have some glitches thrown in. So the reality is, how adaptable are you to be able to manage the stress that happens in your life? So it isn't about a quick fix, take this pill, do this thing. Even doing a meditation once isn't going to do anything for you. So what you want to do is basically have a plan for managing stress, because no matter what happens, it will come on, and can you adapt to it? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Absolutely. Because I've been in the same position as you, actually, where I'm panicked at the last minute. I'm supposed to do something, or maybe it's an interview or it's something else, but then something goes wrong and you were totally calm and relaxed and ready. And then all of a sudden, like, your heartbeat starts going really fast and you're in panic mode, as you said. So it happens a lot.
Yeah, and what happens when you go into panic mode is cortisol gets released, which is the stress hormone. And when cortisol gets released, your brain shuts down, because you can't be in a restful state and a stressful state at the same time. So brain shuts down so you could actually survive whatever it is that's going to happen, because we're coded to run away from danger, which is a great survival skill. But nowadays, in modern times, we're having this stress response, but we're not running away from the saber-toothed tiger. What we're doing is we're doing this. We're sitting down and drinking coffee and coming down off of that cortisol shot. So right now, ideally, what we should do, Myrna, which will totally switch that off, is take 3 really big, deep breaths.
Oh, okay.
Because that will engage the other part of the nervous system that can create and be in this type of mode of, connecting and responding to each other socially and thinking. So 3 deep breaths, like really deep, go down. Get them as deep as you can. And then one more. And you can feel immediately you start to go into
Yes,
that higher
definitely.
brain thought process,
Absolutely.
right? Okay. Okay. So
Absolutely.
that's one, yeah, that's a way to go.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this though. So, what about the difference between chronic stress and occasional stress? And can occasional stress, or the situational type stress that happened this morning, but maybe you're not walking around, like you're wound up like a top all day, can the occasional stress also affect our health and our immune system?
If you really look into it, Myrna, I don't think it's occasional stress or chronic stress so much as how, again, you adapt to it. Because
Okay.
if you can notice, like you're always on the computer doing the same thing the same way every day, and that's called micro trauma. And then the macro trauma would be someone hits you in a car, God forbid, right? But
Right.
what
Right.
happens is the micro, or I would say the little t, little trauma or big trauma. So which is it? So but the little t's add up to the big t's, or let's say little s versus big S. So it's not so much how the stress comes in. It's more of how often it comes in those little jolts, right? Which then causes us to have to respond chronically over time to the same stress that now we're not adapting to. So I think it's more about adapting. Does that make sense?
I think it does. So, in other words, we're going to have stress no matter what, because our bodies are going to react to a situation that makes us panic, right? So, I think what I'm hearing you
Exactly.
say is that using your skills that you've learned or that you're knowledgeable about now, where you can bring that down right away and not stay maybe in that state for a prolonged period because you just don't know how to get yourself back to a calm sort of way of being,
Exactly. Yes,
that's
and
the real
it's
problem.
it's preemptive, so it's prepping. It's saying, I know I'm going to have a lot of stuff that's going to happen to me today, but first I'm going to do what I can do so I can manage it better. For instance, this morning I knew we were going to have this interview, and I've not really done things like this in the past so often, and I'm just learning how to do it because I want to reach more people. So I know that I have to be prepared for this meeting, but it's not going to be in how I look so much as it's going to be how I feel.
Yes.
So, because that's going to come across as there's going to be ease in my body. So
Right.
basically, what I did this morning was I did my breath work, right?
Mhm.
15 minutes of breath work. I got really, really calm. I did some yoga, and I made sure that I was in my forebrain. I was in my parasympathetic state in my nervous system where I could create and be connected. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. What
So I
about
didn't panic. Yeah, I normally, Myrna, if this would have happened, I would have said, you know what, Myrna, I can't do this morning. It's too much. There's too much. I can't do it. But I was like, okay, we'll figure it out, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, you were actually, I have to tell you, Emily, I thought you were pretty calm because I think when it's me, I'm like really out to lunch and now I can't think. Like we had to try to, you had to try to do all these different things to see if you could get everything working. And I
yeah,
thought that you handled it
right.
really well. So I think
Yeah.
whatever you're doing yourself,
So
it's working.
that was a good playing field for us. That was awesome.
Yes, it was. I know. And I couldn't believe we're talking about stress of all things. So I want to ask you this, though. So a big part of what a chiropractor does when you treat people is to make sure that your patient's spine is aligned properly. And I'm
Yes.
wondering if stress affects that alignment, and if it does, what you can do as a chiropractor to alleviate that.
Yes. So I explain this situation in a 30-second drill, we call it, where you can just explain everything comes from the brain and the spinal cord. So the brain sends information down to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord through the spinal nerves sends information to every muscle, cell, tendon, and organ in the body. And so when there's stress, right, we either have chemical stress, we have, which would be like what we put in our bodies. We have physical stress, which is like I fell, or I'm an athlete, or I got into a car
Right,
accident.
right.
Or we can have emotional stress, which is also just as valid. Not that you're emotionally, disabled, but it's more of like something happens to us like just this morning, and how well do you adapt to it? And it's through
Right.
all those three things. And so basically, when the information gets affected through those blockages in the spinal cord down through the rest of the nerves, through malposition and stress and inflammation, we can then have an issue with the transmission of that information, and then we're not working at our optimum, and we're definitely not adapting. So a
Okay.
chiropractor will come in, reposition the spine gently and very specifically, and then what happens is, it's not that we're fixing anything so much as we're then making what's right with you better and stronger, so that you can adapt to these things. So, you know, you can deal with the issues where it hurts, right? And you can deal with all of that, but in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to work better. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. Yeah. So do you find that your patients sort of have an instant relief when they leave the office?
It depends. Only 10% of the nervous system is pain controlled. The other 90% is function. So, and how well you, again, adapt. So
Okay.
sometimes someone can come in and feel this sense of well-being, but be very sore, because it's kind of like working out. You know, you're changing how things are mobilizing in the body. So it could be uncomfortable at first. And usually, if you have a conversation with your chiropractor, you both agree on how quickly you want to get things mobilized and functioning properly. And it's a balance. So we talk and we connect and we decide what's the best way to go about. But I always tell people, expect to be sore. You could feel really amazing. And a lot of times what happens is someone will feel really amazing and then they'll overdo it. They'll run, they'll do all kinds of things because they have this surge of energy, because they're
Yeah.
reconnected, their brain and body. And then they'll come in like 2 days later and say, oh my God, I'm so sore. That was so, and I'll say, well, what did you do? And they're like, well, I gardened for 3 hours. I couldn't garden before, you know, and you're like, okay, well, that's kind of part of the process. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
right. So it sounds like it's very individualized too. You work with
It
somebody,
is.
you need to talk to them to find out what their lifestyle is like too, and what's going on beyond what's just in alignment and in their spine, what's happening emotionally,
Exactly.
psychologically.
Yeah.
Do you have any, so we have a lot of listeners, is there any advice or special tips you want to offer the listeners where to help combat stress on a daily
Yeah.
basis?
Well, we did it. We just did it. The most easiest, freest thing to do on every level would be to breathe.
Okay.
That's the most, we take it for granted. But if you just take note of your breath, you know, I bet you right now, if you check in, are you breathing fast? Are you taking in air? Are you letting air out? And just the consciousness of coming into your body and
So there's a
reset.
mindfulness there. Yeah, you need to
You
think
know, I
about.
mean, it could be. We can make it complicated, or we can make it easy. But breath is one of the first ways your brain knows what it needs to do next. So do we need to get mobilized and run away from a dinosaur or a saber-toothed tiger or danger? Or do we need to sit down and find our way through a problem? You
Right.
know, through management. And again, you can't be in both places at the same time. So if you want to reset and change anything in that moment, it's going to take a deep breath and take that sacred pause to
And
reconnect.
should we do the 3 breaths as we did earlier in the conversation? Is that really deep and then let out
Yeah,
a little bit more quickly and then really deep again?
sure.
3 breaths work well,
Yeah,
you feel?
definitely. And no one knows you're doing it, right? You can be really, really quiet about it. You can do it peacefully. It doesn't have to be a whole big, oh, I'm taking 3 breaths. You know, it's
Yeah.
reconnecting, sacred pause. And then if you really want to take it to another level, there's so many, there's breathing classes you can go online and watch. There's all kinds of things you can take that deeper, and that's extremely transformative, because once you've connected to your nervous system, a lot of stuff can change, from big S or big T to small t to all of it. So it's the primary way to reconnect.
Okay. So, how can listeners find you? Maybe they want to set up an appointment or they want to find out more information. Can you let us know?
Sure. So I have two locations currently, one in Hudson and one in Red Hook, New York.
Mhm.
I'm also looking to open another location in Kingston. I work with another doctor. Her name is Dr. Julia Wilson. She also works in Kingston and Hudson. So we are online. We do have a website. It's hudsonvalleychiropractor.com, and you can see who we are and what we do on there. The other option is to call the office, and I have to look at the number because I don't call the office, but I'll
Right, you don't call it.
so funny.
It's like when a
You can
person
call the
doesn't know their
office.
cell phone number, right? Because they're never calling their
No,
cell phone number.
yeah, exactly. So we're in Red Hook. To make an appointment, it number would be 845 835 6466, and we specialize in getting people better, better in life, better in all the things that they do, better in connecting to themselves. We have a lot of children in here. We have a lot of pregnant women. We love families and athletes, so especially
Okay.
young athletes. So we have so many people. The most that I hear from people, which is actually heartbreaking in a way, is I wish I knew about this sooner,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because people
Well,
really do get better.
yes, that's right. Well, hopefully you'll have some listeners who will reach out to you because you just are extremely knowledgeable on this topic and many others. And I know that your heart isn't really in what you do from other times that we've talked together. So I thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Myrna.
joining us and for talking about such an important topic for our listeners. And I'd like to end it just by saying I'm wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. And until the next
Agreed.
time, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you. Bye,
Okay.
Myrna.